you see a towel on my chair. It's all falling apart after 3 years. This is about family violence in the Canadian Department of Justice and how I see it, and the story of human rights. I have the right to broadcast this. I got a letter saying that from them, Dear Ross Jason Blomly, I greatly appreciate your concern of human rights. Here's the enclosure of a basic information package. Watch the enclosed DVD containing the information of human rights program and the effects around the world. Review the booklet. That's the booklet I just showed you, and so forth. Family violence, if we start out with the definition of, what is it here? Elder abuse. You start under elder abuse, this will give you a great thing to read. Elder abuse is any action, behavior, or failure to act by a person in a position of trust of an adult child. Family member, friend, or caregiver that causes harm to a elder adult. Physical, sexual, emotional, damaging, and loss of properties or assets. Elder abuse covers the role-ranging behavior including hurtful comments, detaining or control of elders in activities, isolation of elders from family or other regular activities, and dueling, pressuring elders to sign legal documents that they don't fully understand, misusing the power of attorney, not providing appropriate medication or medical attention, and any form of physical abuse. You go to the basics in the Department of Justice under family law, under family violence. It says what is family violence, and it declares all of it in there. That's all I need. The cards are above it as well. Some stuff that I've gone through from both mom and dads. I got two moms, two dads, being a stepmom and a real mom, Ann Lai and Rosemary McCrae Bohm, and Ross Joseph Francis, my birth father, and Quinfo or Dave Lai, my dad, who's my stepdad, who adopted us or changed our names, and that's why I have a last name of Lai. Everything from, you can read as well. Declaration of Human Rights for Mental Health, cch.org, same as human rights. The Canadian Charter of Human Rights and Freedom, WICA, you can look it up as well. It states all in it where to look for it in human rights, the Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms. It's all in there. They basically are intertwined. There's a few different things because of Quebec, the Aboriginals of Canada, and stuff like that that are just a little bit different, but equal protection before and after the law, the Privacy Act, stuff like that, properties, the right to movement, it's the exact same as human rights in some senses. We're going to start here since with human rights, and you can listen to the story of human rights, and I'm not going to play the full detail of it this time due to the fact of it'll take almost an hour. So in a second here, I'm just going to pop it up and go from there. It'll take a second for me to turn off what you see of me and go to display. And turn down the mic. We go to here. And we're having a little technical difficulty. As I said, here we go.
Human rights is, geez, that's a good question.
Human rights. Oh, that's a tough one.
Wow.
I don't even know how to give that a definition.
I would probably have to do a little bit of homework or something.
Any right that I think just as a normal, human, any...
The rights that humans have?
Oh, that's a very large debate.
Menneskerettigheder kan betyde mange ting.
Tú le puedes preguntar a 20 personas y te van a dar 20 diferentes opiniones.
Non saprei, una domanda complicatissima.
I guess we just take them for granted that they're there, but we don't even consider what they are.
Human rights are the rights you have simply because you're human. It's how you instinctively expect and deserve to be treated as a person, like the right to live freely, to speak your mind, and to be treated as an equal. There are many kinds of rights. Most apply to a certain group. But human rights are the only ones that apply to absolutely everyone, everywhere. That means kids, old people, poor people, basketball players, garbage men, rappers, teachers, Africans, Indians, Albanians, Christians, Muslims, Kabbalists, atheists, your mom, your dad, your next door neighbor, and you all have the exact same human rights. In other words, they're universal. But the question remains, what are they?
Name the human rights?
What the human rights are?
The right to live.
Equality between all peoples.
Right to religion, the right to...
Is there supposed to be a list somewhere I should be aware of?
According to the United Nations, there are a total of 30 human rights, which are usually lumped together and called simply human rights. They're all listed out in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is the world's most widely accepted document on the subject. But it was a long time in coming. At first, there were no human rights. If you were in with the right crowd, you were safe. If you weren't, well, you weren't. But then a guy named Cyrus the Great decided to change all that. After conquering Babylon, he did something completely revolutionary. He announced that all slaves were free to go. He also said people had the freedom to choose their religion, no matter what crowd they were a part of. They documented his words on a clay tablet known as the Cyrus Cylinder. And just like that, human rights were born. The idea spread quickly to Greece, to India, and eventually to Rome. They noticed that people naturally followed certain laws, even if they weren't told to. They called this natural law, but it kept getting trampled on by those in power. Not until 1,000 years later in England did they finally get a king to agree that no one can overrule the rights of the people, not even a king. People's rights were finally recognized, and they were now safe from those in power. Kind of. It still took a bunch of British rebels declaring their independence before the king got the point that all men are created equal. Which isn't to say he liked the idea, but he couldn't stop them, and America was born. The French immediately followed with their own revolution for their own rights. Their list was even longer, and they insisted that these rights weren't just made up. They were natural. The Roman concept of natural law had become natural rights. Unfortunately, not everyone was so thrilled. In France, a general named Napoleon decided to overthrow the new French democracy and crown himself emperor of the world. He almost succeeded, but the countries of Europe joined forces and defeated him. Human rights was again a hot topic. They drew up international agreements, broadly granting many rights across Europe. But only across Europe. The rest of the world somehow still didn't qualify. Instead, they got invaded, conquered, and consumed by Europe's massive empires. But then a young lawyer from India decided enough was enough. His name was Mahatma Gandhi, And in the face of violence, he insisted that all people of Earth had rights, not just in Europe. Eventually, even Europeans started to agree. But it wasn't going to be that easy. 2 world wars erupted. Hitler exterminated half the Jewish population of Earth in horrifying Nazi death camps. And all told, 90 million people died. Never had human rights been so terrifyingly close to extinction. And never had the world been more desperate for change. So the countries of Earth banded together and formed the United Nations. Their basic purpose was to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person. But what were human rights? Were they the proclamations of Cyrus, the natural laws of Rome, the declarations of France? Everyone seemed to have a slightly different idea of what human rights should be. But under the supervision of Eleanor Roosevelt, they finally agreed on a set of rights that applied to absolutely everyone. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The French concept of natural rights had finally become human rights. So in summary, at first, only a few lucky people had any rights, until one of those guys decided, hey, other people should have some rights too, which was great, except not everyone agreed. And it only took a few thousand years of fighting and declarations and more fighting until everyone finally agreed that human rights should apply to everyone. And they all lived happily ever after. Except for one little problem. If people have the right to food and shelter, why are 16,000 children dying of starvation every day? 1 every 5 seconds. If people have freedom of speech, why are thousands in prison for speaking their minds? If people have the right to education, why are over 1 billion adults unable to read? If slavery has truly been abolished, why are 27 million people still enslaved today? More than twice as many as in 1800. The fact is, when it was signed, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights did not have the force of law. It was optional. And despite many more documents, conventions, treaties, and laws, it's still little more than words on a page. So the question is, who will make those words a reality?
I have a dream today.
When Dr. King marched for racial equality, he was marching for rights that had been guaranteed by the United Nations for almost 2 decades. But still, he marched. When Nelson Mandela stood up for social justice in the 1990s, his country had already agreed to abolish such discrimination for almost 40 years. But still, he fought. Those who fight today against torture, poverty, and discrimination are not giants or superheroes. They're people. Kids, mothers, fathers, teachers. Free-thinking individuals who refuse to be silent. Who realize that human rights are not a history lesson. They're not words on a page. They're not speeches or commercials or PR campaigns. They are the choices we make every day as human beings. They are the responsibility we all share to respect each other, to help each other, and to protect those in need. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home. So close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere.
Bear with me for a second. Sorry. There you go. There's a story of human rights. This time I'm not going to put the all 30 videos in it. I might do that another day. We're going to go off to child abuse and neglect of and what it could be. It could be a parent. It could be a sister. It could be a relative, a caregiver, a guardian, a teacher, a professional, doctor, lawyer, coach, volunteer, somebody who works with children. Abuse at home or outside the house or so forth. Abuse can also be financial harm as well, neglecting of, like he said, for a child, medical treatments, poking, prodding, hitting, slapping, shocking, burning, withholding money or assets from them, and so forth. Locking themselves in a room, or them in a room, or making them not feel comfortable leaving the room in any way. Detaining them. Forcing them in a system. Not listening to your children, blocking them out and pretending they're not there, and so forth. Making up criminal things like common nuisances. Intending to harm your child by saying they have a problem and they don't. Psychological abuse because you refuse to be a parent. What do you want? The baby bonus per year or month or whatnot. Emotional abuse is threatening put-downs, name-calling, insults, which is in an indecent act. It's a criminal offense, just like assault. Uttering threats, making one feel fear, and so forth. Constant yelling and criticism. Continuing and keeping someone from seeing friends and family, just like elder abuse, just like I said, making fun and preventing someone from practicing their faith or religion. Exercising, making fun of them. They make less than you. You're trying to make them into a big person, as one of my fathers do. I have 2 dads and 2 moms, both step-parent and stepmom and stepdad, and a dad who was my stepdad who adopted us. That's why I have a last name of Lai, and so forth. Like I said in the videos, they're there. Both dad, my birth father's the white guy, the Chinese Asian guy is my stepdad who adopted us. You go further on, criminal harassment, stalking, and whatnot. Every time they go somewhere or turn off their computer or jump on their phone, you're listening into them, invasion of privacy, and so forth. Financial abuse, borrowing money, never paying it back, such as your brother asks you for money to buy a bag of weed or buy a new car, and he knows you have money and says, I'll pay you back in 3 weeks, and never does, and his intent was to rob you blind like a premeditated act. I'm sure hoping the audio works this time, because it should have worked the last time. The neglect of clothing and furniture and all that kind of stuff that's necessities of life, adequate health care and hygiene and so forth like that. Spouses, common laws, having a religion, herding them across the country so they can never have friends, and every time you turn around, moving. That's like being a base brat in the military. They used to move from base to base to base, right? So it's child abuse in some senses. They only know the kids who move with them. They're on the base, and so forth. It also has, in family violence, consent of a minor sexually 16 to 18, 16 and under, and so forth in family violence. Genital manipulation of a male or female, equal protection before and after the law. You're not allowed to reduce hormones in a male or female, add them or take away of any hormones, take their blood away, and make their penises big or small if they're male, or sodomize, burn a woman's genitals, or vasectomize, neuter, spade, or take the ovaries out in any way because you want to harm them. Genital manipulation, fondle them, being playing with them in whatever sense of mind it says there. So you watch the human rights videos, it's kids talking about stuff, and go from there. Like I said, a doctor is not allowed by ethics to harm a patient. It's an assault. Force them on a medication and mislead them what the medication is going to do. CCH.org. And listen to a biased opinion of a mom and a dad trying to assault their children and use a medical system as a legal apparatus of a court system, which it is not. You have to prove somebody's guilty before they're guilty and detain them in a jail, No difference in award that they can't go home at that time frame, as the Human Right Mental Health Act says the same thing. An assessment is assessment, not to detain them and force them on medication in any way that may harm them, causing malpractice and a financial burden to the country. With psychological assault, crimes of genocide that lead to harm of other human beings at home or abroad, working for Her Majesty that's not a Canadian citizen, meaning she's a foreigner. She doesn't reside in Canada at any time, but is the head of state. In the best interest of the head of state and the Majesty is the people of the country who live there, reside, and breed. And more Canadians will be born who are working class or non-working class and pay their taxes. People don't work because you're controlling the environment, holding funds, and an adequate lifestyle, as human rights says, which minimum wage is not enough to live by, because it's not adequate. You can't own a car, a house, and whatnot. Human rights says the right of movement. You can't afford a vehicle. It's only your own 2 feet. It's what you can afford. All we can afford is a clothes on our back and barely a pair of shoes. That's all you can afford. Right of movement is your feet. Copyright? Look at a library. You can get DVDs, Blu-rays, audio tapes, and whatnot there. Institution of the Blind. Everything has to be verbally set out, not just on a piece of paper, because it's quicker and faster than reading Braille, right? That's what they say. And when you go to court, it's all verbally said. Only the lawyers read the stuff on the paper and the judge in front of them. But they listen. Just like the court jury of 12, is it? Fair trial. When you're dealing with your mom and dad, is it a fair trial? No, it's their biased opinion of them not wanting to do something because they want, don't have enough money, kids don't understand what money is yet, and so forth. You get your kid to work before the age of 12 doing newspaper, you better give them all their money and not take their money because it's their money. That's their piggy bank. If grandparents give you a birthday present, it's the kid's birthday present, not the mom or dad's to take the money and go spend it on themselves either. If a kid needs glasses in grade 4, then get them glasses. Don't send them for strengthening of the eyeball because they say it's lazy, when the parents need glasses in their lives too. They need dental care, you get dental care. Not saw off their teeth because they're a little pointy and they look like fangs. Because you're a woman, you don't like your boys, you expected women, or say, oh, your brother's supposed to be a girl when he was born, and so forth. Or call her a she, and it's a he. Trying to play some mind games, as some parents do. Right, Mom? Or walk up to your adult child at 26 and slap him in the face, and they're perfectly capable because they were union ran. Or uncles who are union heads and assault you with psychological torture, calling you sticky fingers, and having people say dumb, stupid insults on the job site about stupid things. Your right of expression or whatnot, because you like to be physically fit, doesn't make you a tough guy because you work out or you take boxing class as a cardiovascular or taekwondo or whatnot. If somebody wants to change the world, you have to speak up like human rights says and say, hey, this is wrong. When an elder at 65 goes to retire and they don't have enough money in their pension because it's 10% less than what they made and they're used to making 100% and they're only getting 90, there's something wrong. Just like going on social services or EI for that 7 months or 8 months or 12 months, whatever it might be. You need that 100%. Because that's what you're used to. Or in an apprenticeship program, you only get 60% while you're going to school, and you need 100. When you're 65, shouldn't you get 110 or 120% of what your wages were? Not 70% of it? Because you worked that hard all your life? Before RSPs, all that money went into your kids and the savings accounts. Pay off your house quicker. Or whatnot. Or to feed your kids. But now you can hide and you need an RSP for retirement savings, don't you? So look at the long end. Is it good or bad to have retirement savings or GICs? Are parents neglecting their children? because they're trying to save up for their retirement because CPP isn't good enough. Justin Trudeau talks about human rights in the Liberal Party, fair wages and all that kind of stuff. Then here you go. These are human rights. We're going to end it there because I just did an hour. The audio was off. And there. Ross Jason Bowen live, the Comox Valley. It's a rainy, cloudy day. The sun was out for a short period, and now it's cloudy again. That's your forecast for the Comox Valley. Hope you're listening in, and take her easy. I'll put up the whole thing on human rights another day, just like I did before. But to be detained on medication and be detained in poverty because somebody's controlling your life and herding you around like a cattle, and the labor board not finding your money, it's a human right violation because that's slavery. How do you live on nothing? If you just worked, they should be paying you. There's no such thing as self-employment. It's called casual labor. You're only working for a short period of time, period. At 6 months, 2 days, 1 day, a couple hours a day, it's all casual labor, really. But we call it full-time because you get 40 hours a week. And what is adequate health care? Not yanking your teeth out. Get it fixed before the cancer gets too much or the tooth decay. Ross Jason Bowen lie. We'll get into it another day. We don't need crimes of genocide, like I said, continuously threatened by psychological abuse.